Unit VCSO 6, Learning Outcome 1, Assessment Criteria 1D. Aims and objectives of this session are to cover the following assessment criteria. Maintain surgical instruments appropriately to include cleaning, packaging, sterilisation and monitoring of sterilisation. This is something that you'll carry out practically within the workplace, however it's important that you know the theoretical aspects relating to it. Following a veterinary surgical procedure, you will be responsible as part of the team for cleaning, sterilising and maintaining the surgical equipment used appropriately and in accordance with your practice procedures. You must, while carrying out the above, examine for any defects or issues with instruments and report them to your senior head nurse or the designated person, and the equipment should then be stored away as required. Instrument cleaning. When handling instruments for cleaning, we should do so with care at all times, paying particular care in relation to those with sharp edges or points and those that are delicate. Many instruments are expensive, they need to be fit for purpose and safe for use. When carrying out cleaning of instruments, you must wear personal protective equipment and should wear an apron and gloves as a minimum. Any sharp items should be removed from the kit and safely disposed of in sharp space, to include surgical blades and needles. This will generally be done by the operating surgeon, as they must be removed safely and effectively to prevent harm. Any other disposable items must be disposed of in the relevant waste receptacle. You should separate any delicate or specialised items from your general items that will be bulky and heavier, so that you do not cause damage and can clean them separately also. Again, larger instruments should be separated from general items to again not cause any damage. Instrument cleaning should be carried out as soon as possible when a procedure has been completed. The aim of this is to prevent the blood and debris such as the tissue or saline being able to dry in them, as this will make it harder to clean the item, but can also cause damage to the item such as pitting of the surface, and over time would lead to corrosion. We can utilise initial rinse or soaking to prevent such aspects from occurring, and this must be done in cold water, not hot water. Hot water causes the coagulation of proteins such as blood. Many practices will use solutions to assist with this process, such as the image to the right, where appropriate instruments should be dismantled and ratchets and joints opened before being immersed. Once the initial rinsing or soaking has taken place, the instrument should be cleaned under cool water or warm depending on the product in which you are cleaning the items, using a hand brush with reasonably stiff bristles. You must pay particular attention to ratchets and joints in any serrations. Use of abrasive chemical agents should be avoided, as should ordinary soap such as Hibi scrub, as this can cause a film to form on the surface that traps bacteria and protects during the sterilisation process. If your practice has such equipment, placing the equipment with box joints and ratchets open with an ultrasonic cleaner for the stated amount of time is really good practice. It is a very good means of removing hard to get debris. After your stage of washing, you should thoroughly rinse your instruments, ideally in distilled or deionised water. They require drying prior to packaging, as any trapped water can lead to corrosion of the instrument. Instruments will also need to be lubricated to ensure appropriate functioning using either a spray or milk bath. Ensure again that you follow manufacturer's directions at all times. After cleaning has been completed, you will need to carry out checks for any signs of damage, distortion, misalignment, sharpness or blunting. Joints and ratchets must also be checked for correct function. What if there is any damage or issues to the instruments? Any damaged items should be sent for repair or sharpening or disposed of. You will need to discuss this with a designated member of staff, who is generally your senior or head nurse. It's good practice to sterilise items that are going to be sent for repair, and many repairers require a certificate of decontamination to be sent with instruments. Instruments should never be sent out in a soiled condition, and this is not appropriate due to the nature of tissue, debris and bodily fluids that they could be contaminated with. Packaging for sterilisation. It is really important that your instruments have been thoroughly cleaned, dried and lubricated prior to packaging. Many practices may wrap instrument kits in drapes, whether that be laundered material or disposable drapes. All items required will be included, such as the needles, swabs and the instruments, which should be neatly ordered within. The use of a means of checking sterilisation has been successful, is of great importance, and a commonplace method of doing so is using a TST strip, which checks the time, steam and temperature are all appropriate, and thus the kit has been sterilised appropriately. Many practices use seal and peel pouches, which are disposable bags with an easy-to-use fold-over seal and come in a large range of sizes. It's good practice to double bag all pouch instruments and kits to decrease the risk of damage occurring during storage and also when opening for use. It can be used with both autoclave sterilisation and ethylene oxide gaseous sterilisation. Packing methods. For any items that we are cleaning after use, we should wash, dry and inspect for any damage. Gowns and drapes should be folded appropriately to be flat for sterilisation and to allow sterilisation to take place appropriately. Drapes should be folded concertina widthways and lengthways to achieve a flat pack and allow a free flow of steam. Gowns should be folded so that the outside is on the inside to be put on aseptically, laid out flat, sides folded inwards, concertina lengthways. Instruments with sharp edges should be covered, and instrument handles should be upright so they can be manoeuvred out of the packet with ease. Double bagging would be deemed as best practice. Pack, label and store. Many materials available for use. Choice will depend on the following: the size of the autoclave. Materials must be resistant to damage. Steam or gas must be able to penetrate through materials to items to be sterilised for sterilisation to occur. Microorganisms must not be able to penetrate through the packaging, and also the cost of said materials is very important from a practice point of view. Research the advantages and disadvantages of the following materials. Produce a table containing the following items, then list the advantages and disadvantages. Please then upload this onto one file for your veterinary educationist to mark. I would like for you to cover nylon film, seal and peel packs, paper, textiles such as linen, metal drums and boxes or cartons. We must label items that are going to be sterilised. It must include the name of the item packaged and the number of, for example, who has packaged it via means of initialing, the date it's been sterilised, if a TST strip is included inside the packet, and it would also be good practice to include data-free sterilisation, and we generally do this at 6 to 8 weeks. Monitoring the efficacy of sterilisation. So how do we know if something is sterile? There are different means of us being able to be informed. Many practices nowadays use the seal and peel packaging, and these have their own demarcation on the back of the packaging, as you can see in the middle bottom image. Some also have their own forms of TST strip that we can remove from the packaging and place inside. Many practices would use TST strips, which we can see in the image bottom left, and some practices, depending on the sorts of instruments, gowns, equipment that they are sterilising, may also use Bowie dictate, which can be seen bottom right and also top right. However, that only changes at 121 degrees C, and we generally would be looking for a higher temperature than that, and this is where our TST strips come in. We do need to be sure that sterilisation has taken place effectively. It is not okay just to guess that it has. We can use these various aids, some of which were listed on the previous slide, and I would like you to use your textbooks to research the following: TST strips, Brown's tubes, Bowie dictate, spore tests and thermocouples. Again, please produce either a table or a mind map and detail how they are used and any advantages or disadvantages that are relevant. Then please upload onto one file for your veterinary educationist to mark. Sterilisation. It's important for you to be aware of the following definitions. So sterilisation is a method that produces an object, for example a surgical instrument, that is free from all microorganisms. Chemical sterilisation is the use of chemical compounds or solutions to produce sterilisation effect of being free from all microorganisms. Steam pressure sterilisation, this is the use of steam delivered over a period of time and at a pressure that will result in items that are free from all microorganisms. And gaseous sterilisation is the use of gas to produce sterilisation of being free from all microorganisms. Steam pressure sterilisation, most common form used within veterinary practice, and the most common type that we would use is an autoclave. There are 3 types of autoclave that you need to be aware of: vertical pressure cooker, horizontal vertical down placement autoclave, or vacuum assisted autoclave, and nowadays we use the vacuum assisted. We can autoclave a range of items to include instruments, drapes, gowns, swabs and glassware. We should site it in a well ventilated accessible area on a flat surface. It shouldn't be an area that experiences extremes of temperature. Steam pressure sterilisation. Autoclaving is considered to be the most effective and reliable method of sterilisation and is also the most popular within the veterinary industry. Advantages of using autoclaves are safety of the equipment in comparison to other methods. Penetration of surgical packs is good with steam, making it an effective method. There are, however, some disadvantages. Personnel will need some training in order to be able to use the method appropriately, and the autoclave requires regular care and maintenance. So the vacuum assisted autoclave, it has a high powered vacuum pump. Steam penetration and sterilisation happens quickly, then a second vacuum cycle takes place and this withdraws moisture and dries the load. It's suitable for all types of instruments, drapes and equipment. There is a range of cycles and temperatures. Fully automatic and have mechanisms in place that may include warning lights and alarms to indicate an issue with the cycle to inform staff if items may not be sterile. They are larger and sophisticated in comparison to other autoclaves. Vacuum assisted autoclaves do have costs of maintenance and initial outlay might be higher than other autoclaves, but this is outweighed by the reliability and efficiency, which is why it is the most commonly seen autoclave in veterinary practice. So what takes place? In the autoclave process, we have water boiling at 100 degrees centigrade and it converts into steam. Some microorganisms, however, are resistant to heat. Increasing the pressure, this in turn increases the temperature of the steam, which rises to a point to make it enough to kill bacterial spores. The higher temperature, the shorter the time needed for sterilisation. And please notice the increased temperature that kills the microorganisms. These are common autoclave settings. You must ensure that if you're using TST strips that these relate to the settings that you will be using with your autoclave to ensure that they're giving you an accurate reading when using. Use of the autoclave. You'll need to follow a practice procedure for safe use of your autoclave. There should be a practice SOP relating to it, and this will relate to appropriate loading for the autoclave cycles to ensure that effective cycles are achieved, and also from the point of view of health and safety to help protect yourself from any injuries or harm from occurring. You'll also need to comply with the maintenance and effective use, including topping up of the distilled water, because that is required for the cycles to take place. We can use some cold sterilisation methods. In the past we used to use formaldehyde. This is now restricted via cost regulation, so this isn't something that we should be using. Chemical solutions, these are really useful for things such as endoscopes. Really is only a means of disinfection generally rather than sterilisation. Glutaraldehydes, these are irritants. Items must be washed with sterile water prior to use. PPE to be worn. They are an acidic powder, so again this isn't something that we commonly use in practice. We can also use chlorhexidine solutions. Generally this is disinfectant only because this has poor activity against spores, fungi and viruses. Chemical sterilisation. We generally regard it as a high-level form of disinfection rather than sterilisation, and it does have limited uses. It is often used in relation to equipment that will tolerate little or no heat, such as plastic tubing for endoscopy and arthroscopy equipment. There's many different chemicals used for cold sterilisation. It's important to follow the manufacturer's recommendations and guidelines. The chemicals should be stored in a sealed container to prevent evaporation and contamination from airborne microorganisms. The items require rinsing with sterile water following sterilisation by this method. An example is Savlon or Mananol 1 to 30 made up to 100 ml with 70% alcohol for 2 minutes. Another example is Medis. We may also utilise Novastapper, although that is now hard to come across. In the past, when we used glutaraldehyde such as Sidex to disinfect, the liquid should be submerged for 24 hours. The use of this disinfectant is limited, however, as it's irritant and toxic. And if we were to use, then gloves, face masks and protective eyewear should be worn when handling. Storage after sterilisation. We should have a separate area for storage of surgical packs. It should be dry, dust-free, well ventilated, something such as a closed cupboard. Minimal handling of stored packs, as this can cause damage. We should pack loosely and not on top of each other, because again this could cause damage, and it should also be done in a manner that items are easily located or identifiable. In summary, the purpose of this session was to cover the following assessment criteria: maintain surgical items appropriately to include cleaning, packaging, sterilisation and monitoring of sterilisation. This is something that you will carry out practically day to day in your workplace, and it is important to have the basic theoretical knowledge to support this.